Hi guys, Becca here from Strong Woman Highs, and welcome to our bonus episode, PED Talks. Here's a little brief introduction before we get started. So I'm doing these bonus episodes around women's performance-enhancing drug use to increase conversations and awareness around PED use. And at the same time, I'm running a dissertation survey on the prevalence of PED use within the sport. PED use is a topic that gets discussed a lot, but actual relevant evidence is scarce, especially for women. So if you're a woman in this sport and you would like to take part in the survey, then check out the link in the show notes below. Quick disclaimer, this podcast is meant to inform and educate others on people's choices and experience around PED use. It is not advice to take PEDs. We do not condone the use of performance-enhancing drugs unless it is your informed decision to do so. This is not medical advice and is in no way related to our professional roles. I hope you enjoy this episode and remember to like, share and subscribe for future episodes. Enjoy!
Hello and welcome back to a very special bonus episode of Strong Woman Highs. This is our first, well actually technically our third, PED Talk. Welcome to the show, Nicola Ann Bennett.
Greetings, friends.
Nice to have you on, mate. So do you want to give everyone a little bit of a brief introduction, elevator pitch to who you are, what you're all about, that type of jazz for the pod?
So I'm, currently, recently, now 6 times Scotland's strongest woman across 3 weight classes, most recently this weekend. Been fortunate enough to have won a British title, European title, and podiumed at OSG World, and most recently internationally at the Arnold, and done some other bits and bobs around the corners.
Hell yeah, very decorated, highly decorated athlete on this podcast. We will also be doing a proper Strong Woman Highs episode, but we wanted to do this one first because this is exciting. So today, obviously, we're just going to be mainly talking about PEDs, so performance-enhancing drugs for anyone who doesn't know. I guess we'll just get straight into the questions, shall we?
Go for it.
Well, my first question is, what made you start taking PEDs?
Quite simple, old school strongman stuff of, I was briefed that anyone who was anyone in strongman got there because of performance enhancing drugs. And I was in a very laissez-faire, I've got nothing to live for area of my life at the time. And I was like, oh, God, what have I got to lose?
Fair enough. Yeah, absolutely fair enough. Do you think that mindset's changed like recently? Do you think it's better or do you think it's worse than it used to be? Because I remember when I first started and I had the same talk of like everyone at the top is on PEDs, like you won't get that without them.
Yeah, I couldn't speak to that awfully because like when it comes to like training, I don't train as a part of a team anymore, and maybe among the men it's more of an open discussion, but certainly amongst the women it's not really something that I hear people coming up. It's maybe once in a blue moon someone actually contacts me to ask for my opinion or like my experience of it. I think amongst the men it's probably a lot of that within, because those old school circles are still prevalent, and they're still scattered about, so they'll still be sticking to their guns, I think, a little bit on that. It's more what you see the women doing when you're actually in comps and things. I think that that has changed. It's not as discreet in certain places as it used to be. It used to be a lot of discretion and tact, whereas now that seems to have gone out the window. That's the biggest change I've noticed.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. I think there's definitely more women talking about it anyway, and more women like open to talk about it as we're proving right now. Was it originally a conversation had with men or women?
Oh, men.
Yeah.
It was I remember having a conversation with one of said men not so long after the initial discussion about, oh, well, maybe I could talk to such and such because she does really well in the scene. And oh no, you don't talk to anyone about it. Don't talk to them. They won't like you talking to them about it. I was like, but it seems obvious to me,
Yeah.
Like, oh no, yeah, but you can't really talk about it. So even the men were being hush about the women. You know what I mean? Which was just compounding the issue that the women were also being hush about it.
Yeah. Because I was like, I remember when I started and I was asking people about it and stuff, because I was pretty on the train of like, yeah, I'm going to do this too. And I was told like, just if you approached women face to face, that was the only way you were allowed to do it. You couldn't message them, couldn't like put it on Instagram or like message them. It had to be, if you were in face to face, you're already having a conversation about something, you could maybe drop it into conversation to ask them, and that was it. Like the only way to find out about it.
And if like Mercury was in retrograde and they were well hydrated, and they'd had a good night's sleep, and
yeah. Absolutely, yeah. It's so weird. It was like, I mean, it is still now, isn't it? Like so taboo and so weird. But yeah, it's interesting that, because that's what men and women had both said to me, is just like, oh yeah, just ask them directly, but not too directly.
not too directly. Use
Use your tact.
It's not really a talent. It's not really a talent in your wheelhouse either, really, is it? Tact.
No.
It's just be like, all right, mate.
Yeah, I was like, oh, how's your day? Have you taken PEDs? Terrible intros. But well, do you want to go into some of the PEDs that you've used then, and how you found them and that sort of stuff?
Found as in side effects, or found as in how I sourced them?
No, as in like how they've worked for you. Well, both. Yeah, go into all of it.
Obviously, it's usually like a hearsay thing. It's like someone will have told you to try this, and he knows a guy, and you always know a guy, and his stuff's always legit, and it's always, just the only stuff you should use. But aside from that fact, I actually started my journey with the one that I've reacted the worst to. And again, this highlights the importance, I think, we need people to talk about their experiences and understand the female physiology in regard to it, because it was actually deca. And it was from the perspective that it'll be better for your joints, you'll put on more muscle, and I have no basis for comparison here. Like, it seems to me, even though I'm considering this, it still seems logical to me not to ask Google. In the pre-AI days of like no mass intellect, it was just like Reddit forums with bodybuilders still doing the same shit they were doing in the 70s. I was like, it still feels like not a good idea to ask Google anything about this. So I'm gonna trust that this is a good idea. 3 weeks later, I'm sat on same friend's conservatory floor, absolutely in floods of tears. I've fairly vocal about having a history of challenging mental health, but this was probably one of the worst reactions to anything I've ever had. Still hadn't actually at that time made the connection between the compound I'd been taking and then this biblical meltdown. What was the point in life? Everything's too hard. Like, why is it so hard? Is there any end? And of course, like, there's still something to be said for the fact that this whole sport pursuit and PED use decision was based off of unresolved issues that had been occurring in my life for like the last 3 years prior. So, there's obviously shit there, but it was enormously, like, this enormous outpouring. I just remember thinking to myself, like, this is it. This is the end. Like, I can't do this. I'm done.
Yeah. And
it was only at that point that said friend, it was like, yeah, okay, so this was probably a poor decision. Like, this, this isn't working out as we had hoped. Because obviously it hasn't necessarily had the same impact on some of the men who had recommended it. And what I actually didn't find out until much, much later was that there's an interaction with nandrolone and progesterone, which is mimicked in certain female contraceptives.
Right.
The same variety that were deemed unsafe for me about 8 years prior to this PED episode, on account of the fact that I just don't handle that kind of like progesterone based compound. And so it was the exact same reaction. And even at that time, obviously, I didn't know to make that comparison. I didn't understand what was going on. I just willingly, I was not coerced. I was not told I had to do it. I wasn't bullied. I willingly made that decision, and I willingly chose to do it blind.
Yeah.
Which, as I say that now and have contemplated it over the many years since, like, was just such poor decision making. So that was deca. And then I was given something that the name of which totally escapes me now, but another compound basically to counteract the effects that the progesterone was having on me. And obviously in this time I'd got quite I'd started to get a bit of water retention. I was getting a bit puffy. And up until that point, even in life generally, I was always quite slim because I was always fairly active and had quite an active lifestyle. I was also just naturally genetically blessed in that respect. So I was starting to get a bit puffy and a bit bloated and just didn't feel too great. That obviously paled into insignificance compared to the mental side effects of how it made me feel. And I moved on at that point to primo, which obviously if the strength comparisons weren't the same, it wasn't quite as but I felt all right and I didn't feel too watery and all the rest of it, and so that was okay. But because that was going okay, we decided, and when I say we, by this point I'm with a bodybuilding based nutritionist, and we're maybe a year into my journey, and he's like, okay, well, why don't we try stacking that with another compound?
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, let's do that. And then so pervaded an 18-month unbroken cycle of primo topped up with this other compound that shall remain nameless, but I'll leave it to people's imagination as to what that was. Probably the worst one.
Yeah.
And I've never been so self-centered, arrogant, bitter, and held such resentment for everybody and everything in my life.
Really?
And I put on loads of weight, didn't sleep, constantly sweating.
Yeah.
And it's only on reflection that I even noticed any of these things, because it's, as with everything in life, anything gradual, you don't notice it's smaller. The incremental changes it makes to your entire life and your entire being until it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And so what actually brought all that to a swift end was the accident that I had in 2021. And so at the end of this, however many years it's been at this point, of all these, all these cycles, it was basically about 3 cycles in total, but they were just, one of them was incredibly long. I had an accident which completely halted my strongman career for about, I think it was about 18 months in total. I had a hematoma in my right thigh that had my leg swell up from the top to the bottom about the same thickness, and it was bloody and bruised and black for a long time. I was on crutches, I couldn't work, and because I couldn't go anywhere, do anything, and I'd made this sport my entire life, it suddenly, everything that I've been distracting myself from for the last, by that point, probably 2.5, 3 years, was suddenly upon me and stood right in front of me, and I had no way of escaping it. However, the doctors also decided that the best course of action under these circumstances was to give me a box of about 200 cocodamols and send me home with a pair of crutches. So now I've gone from being this, I've been up here feeling like a superhero and that unstoppable God complex, which I hope I didn't project onto the world. And if I did, I apologize, because I did not love who I was at that time. And I've gone from here to like through the floor.
Yeah.
And with a complex relationship with things like, well, alcohol, basically, even before all this. I'm sat there with I'd have my cocodamol in the morning, get out of my bed with my crutches, go to my computer desk, I'd have my cocodamol, love my little cocodamol buzz until about lunchtime, when I start to feel a little bit sad and be then contemplating how long could I wait until I opened a bottle of wine or opened and that progressed. And so the distraction that I'd had and this awful like high of like confidence just plummeted out of nowhere. And again, rather than actually address anything, I just distracted myself for that period of time. And it was only actually a bodybuilder friend of mine who actually picked me up and sort of shook me off and went, right, by the time I'm off my crutches, obviously, but I'm still not kicked the booze and the love of cocodamol. and was like, we're good. We just need to get you back in the gym. You just need to do something. You just need to move. You just need to do something. And you have something to focus on. And it was actually she who helped me to understand better if I was going to go down this route of using PEDs and staying as an athlete in some capacity or other. Taught me a lot about how to select ones that were more safe for a female physiology and to one's general constitution and mindset. And that's when the primo came back, and that was just layered up with on a peak, like in a set period of time rather than long term, with anavar.
Yeah.
2 words that lots of people in any kind of like strength or gym based sport are fairly familiar with. The primo, obviously, as we've discussed, like very little side effects. I didn't notice anything. The anavar, I certainly noticed I was a bit more short tempered. I would dry out a lot more, like in my physique, and the strength gains from it are really great. Like it's still one of my go-to choices. The only problem with stacking 2 DHT compounds on top of each other for somebody like me who already had high testosterone before I started this entire journey was that it did cause some like thinning in my hair. And I've always been a hairy guy, like super always been hairy. It just, when there's too much, if I'm on a higher anavar or if I'm on a primo and anavar, I just get more hairy more quickly.
Yeah.
So, because, and that's really been it for those. And obviously you've got pre-workout compounds like Halo and Anadrol. I know some people cycle Anadrol. I would not be a fan of that. It has a similar impact on people who have progesterone issues. So the day after, a day after a competition, or if I've used it for a heavy event session before a competition, the day after I've had Anadrol, I will feel a little bit sad in the morning. There's like a little bit of a come downy kind of feeling. And Halo just spikes aggression and makes me super short tempered and ready to have a full on row with anyone.
Right. Yeah.
But they're quite short half-life. So, they're in and out like fairly quickly. And that's kind of been my particular journey. I feel I've been quite fortunate in how my body has received these compounds and the abuse that I've given it between PEDs and drink and painkillers and things, which is a discussion for another time. But I always had quite high testosterone. When I was younger, I had problems with my menstrual cycle since as long as I can remember. And I've struggled with handling. I know we all get mood swings as women, but mine were as bad that there's periods and there are points in my cycle where the levels of self-loathing are unbearable. And so for me, a huge benefit of having discovered PEDs and justifying their use in line with a sport has been that I don't have to live in that as that person.
Yeah.
The peaks and troughs that I would handle throughout my cycle, it was incredibly challenging. And I know there's lots of other women who experience that same kind of thing. So it was always, it didn't factor to me as being an issue because it took away that person that I didn't like being. And it would have, and it wasn't so much like it, I don't feel emotions. It's just, I don't feel the peaks and troughs that come with being a woman through their cycle. And because I've had high testosterone, those spikes of estrogen and progesterone concurrently are almost feel as quite erratic. And because I've always been hairy and I've always had to manage being a hairy woman, even but up until the age of 28 without PEDs, I was like, well, this isn't unusual for me. So yeah, that's
No, it's so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I find it absolutely fascinating. Did you find there was any other like virilization effects that were sort of like that you struggled with at all, or was it just that you were like, oh, I'm a bit more hairy, but like I can fucking deal with that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, like for me, like I've been quite fortunate that my voice hasn't changed too much. What I do notice, however, was when I was at school and when I was growing up, I was incredibly musical, and one of my instruments was actually just vocal. So I, to the point where I was offered a scholarship to go to a music um, college in England when I was at school, and one of and this may sound ridiculous considering everything we've just discussed, but one of my greatest sadnesses, not regrets, but one of my greatest disappointments is that it has changed my voice to a point where I can't sing anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And it may sound ridiculous because I'm like, I never pursued a career or anything, but it just brought me so much joy to be able to sing. And it was just such a part of who I was before.
Yeah.
Even though I did, like I say, even though I didn't pursue it, I would like drive home in the car and sing. I would sing in the shower. I would sing along to my favorite songs all the time. And now I can't because either it hurts, it like physically hurts my throat, or I just know I can't hit notes. And I just like,
Yeah.
I can't. And I don't even sing in church anymore because there's just no point because I'm just like, I can't,
Yeah.
so that,
It's
that,
crazy.
that was one that really kicked my ass.
Yeah, it's that's not even something I would ever thought of as well with the voice change, because obviously like that's for
Yeah.
me ever thinking about like if I was ever going to take PEDs, that for me is my biggest concern, because my voice is, I mean, I answer the phone now and people are like, yes sir, and I'm like, fuck. No, I'm a girl, I promise. Like I know in my head I couldn't cope with that. Like I
Yeah.
know for a fact that if my voice was lower than it is now, I would really struggle, because I struggle with it now. Were those ever things that you'd like thought about before taking PEDs, or had anyone ever mentioned those risks to you and said like, oh, these are some things that you like might need to be aware of, or just like have a think about this before you do anything?
Yeah, so one thing I'll bring up for you, like in your instance, like, and the benefit of having discussions like these is that there are vocal exercises that I discovered years and years and years and years later that you can do to slow the sort of contractions that gear use
Really?
cause in your vocal cords. And so there are things you can do that you build into your day that can stop that from happening, or at least
Yeah.
slow its progression. But absolutely, they discussed the risks to me. But as is so often a human condition, I was like, well, it's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens to them. It's not going to happen to me. And what's completely bonkers to look back on for me is going to competitions with these people and then pointing out women who were highly viralized and, had visibly changed from their gear use. And they'd be like, oh, look at their gear use. Oh my goodness. And I'm like, looking back at baby strongman Nick with these guys, I'd be like, what? The signs were all there,
Yeah.
like they were literally pointing out your potential of your future to you.
Yeah.
And whilst also showing you down the route to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, look at them. Oh, you could be like them too, but they're actually not saying that at all.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, they absolutely were. But as was so often the sort of the cavalier attitude I've had in many times in my life, it's just like, well, what's the worst that could happen? Like, and it's not going to happen to me. And yeah. For somebody who was so fixated on planning every minute part of their future, I've also made some wildly contrasting, approaches to decision making,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
demonstrated by that.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting that. How did you find out about the vocal exercise? Because that's something as well that like those virilization effects, like the hair and obviously the changes in bone structure and the voice changes and stuff like that. Like women can't find information on how to do that. So how did you find like the information out about those vocal exercises? Was it from other women?
No, it wasn't. It was Google. I was just sort of, I just started looking, I just started looking into like, how were the ways that you could approach reversing virilization. And it was,
Right.
and there's oftentimes it's like, well, cessation, as in just stop,
Yeah.
first of all. And then it's like some things can be, if not completely reversed, it's physiologically, biologically changed you forever, and that's part of the, how long can you be off gear before you're considered natty question, which I don't think should even be a question. If you've taken any substance, you are not natural, and you should just put your fucking big girl or boy pants on and go compete with the other ones of us. I was going to say like mutants, but I'm not going to say mutants.
I don't think we can call you that. That's too far.
But do you know what I mean? Like, so what was the question? I told you this would happen.
It was just about where you'd found the information about.
Yeah, so I just Googled and I was just looking at like how can you reverse effects of things, and like because obviously my concern since I came back to the sport, I'm more like I would like longevity, but I would also like to look after myself to a point that when I want to walk away from competing and be an old woman, I don't want my entire identity until the day I die to be, oh, she was that strong man, because I've got no choice but to be that character. I don't want to I don't want to choose that path at the crossroads. Do you know what I mean? So I'd still like to be able to have a life beyond the sport. And that was one of the things I started looking at. It's like, well, there's not really a way necessarily to reverse it, but there are exercises to reduce its impacts on you or slow that regression of that. Other than that, not really anything. Yeah, it's not really anything that anyone's ever shared with me, because let's be honest, we're all in this sinking ship together. Like nobody really knows what they're doing or why we're doing it, because nobody talks about it. You know?
And as well, like there's just no studies, there's no research, like no one really knows like the effects, and well, especially in strongwoman. I mean, I can't talk for obviously with bodybuilding and other strength sports. I'm sure there has been studies on PED use in females, but even then they're so small and so specific to one certain thing. It doesn't give us a lot of information to go off, so we're having to work off of people's experiences.
Mm-hmm. And just like make a catalogue of how people have experimented almost, because let's be honest, that's what it is ultimately.
Yeah,
just experimentation,
absolutely.
and like having this anecdotal evidence.
Yeah.
But until people talk about it and participate in studies, those studies aren't going to exist for other people to be safer or to look after themselves.
Yeah, 100%.
And not. It's not just the biological perspective for me. It's like the moral question of it as well.
Yeah, no, I really agree with you. I think it's just such an interesting subject, isn't it? And it just needs that little bit more research, a little bit more scientific backing, where we can sort of go, right, we do actually have like answers now, like we can make informed choices, because I think that's the biggest problem is for years, women especially have just not been able to make informed choices because that information isn't there.
No. And it's not for the want of people having done it. It's like, you're not going to stop people from doing it. So can we at least please make it as safe as possible? It's like, if you can do it for recreational drug addicts. I'm not saying that we're addicted to PEDs. If you can take a recreational drug addict and give them a safe space to inject illegal drugs and safe, clean equipment, why can't we have a discussion about how women can take performance-enhancing drugs in a sport that permits it in as safe a manner as possible?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I wonder whether that'll change as well with the upcoming like enhanced games and the way that they're doing it. Like, because obviously they're really pushing out the PED use, and they've got women on that team as well. So it'll be really interesting to see if that does change, and if that research level does change following on from that.
One would kind of hope almost that you would have the inception of something like that a parallel with study. Like, if you've got the scientists and doctors there administering it, it seems almost stupid. In fact, I'm just going to say it's stupid not to do it at the same time, because you're going to promote that as a form of entertainment, influencing people's decisions, actively encouraging basically your viewership to do the same, but then also withhold the information as to how they can do that safely.
Yeah, exactly. No, I totally agree, and it'll be interesting to see how the way that they promote it and when it all comes together, whether there is any part of that, because it is, if they haven't done studies on these athletes, like, what a missed opportunity. Like, you should
Not
have been
just a
doing
missed
that. Like,
opportunity, but like irresponsible.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree.
Like all the
Especially if it's true that they say there is doctors and scientists involved, which, like, you hope there is, but
one can
I
hope.
mean, that takes us to another interesting point that you made earlier as well about nutritionists. Now, I don't want to go into it too much because obviously we're not like naming names. We're not here to like point fingers and all that sort of bullshit. However, like, this is a super common thing that I've heard so many times in strongman of nutritionists or people who are doing the diets or even like just training programs and coaches and stuff advising on PED use. Like, how do you feel about that?
On the one hand, how do you vet who is qualified to make those kind of recommendations and decisions? And then
Yeah.
on the other, if people are asking you for it, you can, or asking them for it, you can kind of only hope that they have that person's safety in mind.
Yeah.
Like it's just all operating on trust in a sport where nobody trusts each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's
You know,
it's such a weird area, isn't it? Like,
it's
because
just so many weird gray areas and crossovers, and this is what I mean. Like, there's nothing official out there for us to study. We have to assume people are doing enough due diligence that they're at least trying to get a rudimentary understanding of how the hormones system works and how those hormones interact with your body, whether you're male or female. And then
yeah,
from there, decide what your goals are, what you're prepared to sacrifice,
yeah,
in line for this sport. And ask yourself the biggest question, which is all that worth it? If yes, cool. But then where'd you go? Like, who'd you go to? Like, you ask your drug dealer, well, he's just going to want to sell you stuff, so we don't really care.
yeah,
Unless you get one that over time you realize does have your best interests at heart, which is rare. Then, like, do you get it from your mates at the gym? Like, who you don't trust to write you a program or wouldn't trust to take your granny home in a like
yeah,
from the airport. So why would you trust them with your biological, physical, fertility, mental health? Do you know, like, I could go on, but I'm not. I'm
yeah.
not going
No,
to
I
because I think I've
totally
made my
agree.
point. Like, you have to take it in good faith that people have your interests at heart. And you've just, I feel that you've got, and it's assuming that you have the, skill of critical thinking and you're able to look beyond the surface of what, and unfortunately, when we're in a society where people can't seem to explain to you why they hold a certain opinion, it doesn't inspire me that the vast majority of people have the critical thinking skill in order to then look at this person that they're taking drug advice from and going, okay, so historically, has this person, like, how have their athletes performed? How do their other athletes of my sex look after having taken cycles recommended by them? How has their performance been affected? How has their home life been affected?
Yeah,
But you just kind of have to assume that people are using some modicum of sense when it comes to it. But unfortunately, I'm not always sure that's the case, especially in today's society. And I'm going to sound like an old granny here, but in today's society where everyone expects everything yesterday. Like,
yeah,
yeah, you want, okay, so I want, I don't know, like, I ordered a foam roller today. I wanted a foam roller. It's going to be at my house tomorrow, and it's like everything's here tomorrow or today, or I don't actually have to even get off my sofa to get my dinner, my groceries, do anything. If I really
yeah,
potentially could not actually have to leave my house to go to work, if that was the route I'd gone down. And people expect the same things from their bodies.
yeah, absolutely.
Like,
Yeah,
you
and I
expect,
think
like, oh, what's the fastest way for me to get that trophy? Okay, right. And I, for some reason in my internal wisdom, have decided that taking gear is going to make me get to that destination faster. And they're like, oh, well, I'm not getting there fast enough. Okay, I'll take more. And it's,
yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think that's the danger that I see, especially in nutritionists as well. Like even just for Gen Pop people, like people go in and just saying like, oh, I just want to look better. I want to like feel better in myself. Like, and then having nutritionists are like, well, you can have your like nutrition, but if you take this, it's going to be faster. And it's a bit like
Yeah, well, this is it. Yeah.
that's what concerns me, especially for those people who say aren't in strength sports and they don't know a lot about drugs or they don't know a lot about stuff like that's being taken. Like that does concern me a little bit. But again, it's like it's up to people to do their own research, isn't it? And especially now with how easy it is to look up stuff on the internet, like you'd hope that people would do that. But again, especially for women, there's not that much. Like, yeah, you can look up on the
It's not
internet,
that
but
much.
it
Like
depends on
we
how
have
much your
at our
AI likes you.
fingertips. Like this thing, like you literally, like imagine this if we were growing up. You have the entire information of the entire world in a little brick that you carry around with you every day, and people
Yeah.
still can't make informed decisions.
Yeah, about their body. Yeah, it's just wild, isn't it? It's absolutely fucking wild. But anyway, right, let's get back to a bit about you. So, what would you say your I'm gonna go back to our little strong woman highs vibes. What would you say your highs of PED use have been across like whether that's competition or just general training? Like, what have your highs been?
Um, I'd say my ability to recover faster, compete more, maintain condition over extended periods of time with fairly minimal downtime.
Yeah,
And as much as this flies in my face, in the face of what I said about longevity, it's allowed me to do that in a really condensed time frame.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, with the recovery ones, the one that gets me because I think obviously a lot of people who don't know about PEDs just think you just take PEDs, you don't do anything, you just get really, really strong. But it's not that, is it? A lot of PED
No.
use is the fact that you just recover better, so therefore can train more and harder. And like,
Yeah.
so in terms of like recovery, so if say I did a max deadlift, I'm looking at 10 days out easily. 10 days out, no way I'm getting back into deadlift, even light, probably within 10 days. Like, what would that be for you?
I'll be able to deadlift heavy every week if I want to, and like my CNS is kind of at a point now where like a peak doesn't really work the same as it used to. Like I used to need like 6 weeks solid, and I just kind of like operate on a level now, and like with like 4 to 5 days off, but I could just I can quite happily jump into any comp and
Yeah,
assume that I'm going to manage okay. Like it's not like it's a fix all kind of thing.
yeah,
Having the compounds, because like if you're not sleeping enough, like no amount of PEDs is going to change the fact that you don't sleep, don't eat properly, you know, don't drink enough water. If anything, as soon as you start taking them, your sleep becomes a lot more important if you want to maintain relationships with anybody, because your fuse is going to be shorter. You need more nutrients. You need to eat even better than you did before, because of the demands that your body is now the PEDs are placing on your body. Like, it's like, imagine taking like, it's like a much more finely tuned machine. All
yeah,
your systems are firing on a much higher level than they were before. And you need to be hydrated because your blood volume has just gone through the roof. And unless you want a stroke or something like that, you want to make sure that you're going to be hydrated.
yeah,
Um, you're going to need to take even more stuff to look after your kidneys and your liver. You're there's every single every single one of your systems, and like you're going to be so much more inflamed because you're on gear as well. So you're going to put on weight. So if you're
yeah,
a weight class athlete, yeah, it's good because you can recover faster, and you can probably end up doing harder water cuts as you progress. But kind of like all it's doing really is giving you back what you've taken away from yourself from the water cut anyway.
yeah,
With
yeah,
like the hit you've taken from cutting like 10 kilos.
yeah,
You need to do everything, and you need to train harder, or there's no point in having even done it. Like you can't
yeah,
go into and half-ass your sessions like you used to just because you're on gear. You're not just going to get stronger from that. Like you need to put more into it because you're on them.
yeah, yeah. It's like
It
it's
just allows
almost
you to
like
operate at a higher level.
Yeah, like if you were looking at a triangle of like important stuff for training, if you just wanted to be like generally strong, PED use would just be at the top, wouldn't it? Of like, this is extra. It's going to be like, it's
Yeah.
going to give you an extra edge. But if everything else is fucking bullshit underneath it, like, it's going to make no difference whatsoever.
And it's
Like,
actually going to
or,
make your side effects and your virilization worse.
yeah. Yeah, 100%. Well, moving on then. What have been your worst lows, like your worst lows coming out from using PEDs and competing?
100% that episode at the beginning, which should have been, should have really pointed out to me, the dangers, but I just chose to ignore them and just went and took a different one.
Yeah.
I'd say I don't always feel great in myself. Like, I'm heavier than I'd like to be. As I've alluded to, I can't sing anymore. I have to look after my skin a lot better. My skin's drying out, like a lot faster than it used to. Depending on what I take, my hair falls out. And that's just been lessons. And the low, another low, like not necessarily like a physical low, but a low has just been like having to constantly work out what's best for me
Yeah.
all the time. Like it is an experiment, and it's ridiculous. Like, oh, I can't use that because this happens to me, so I'll try this. And oh, well, that I'm not strong as on that, or and it's just this constant self-doubt um and until very recently, it did make my anxiety worse. Only because I've learned how to deal with that better.
Yeah.
So I don't always love walking around. Like, when it's good, it's really good. And that's usually when training has gone well and then it's 5 minutes before you're just back in the real world anyway. And you're back to feeling puffy and bloated and like hot all the time and irritable, and then you get more irritable because you're too hot. And then you get hot because you're irritable. And then your anxiety goes through the roof. And then like Doris from down the road's driving in front of you just 5 miles an hour too slowly, which is making you more irritable. And it's just this like
Yeah.
self-perpetuating cycle of heat, tension, and just
Yeah. No, I get it. To be fair, that just sounds like me because I'm fucking always warm. If anything, you're really putting me off him because I'm always fucking warm. I'm pretty irritable anyway. Like, fucking hell, I'd be a nightmare.
Well, this is the thing. It just takes what you already have and amplifies it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm already miserable, bitter, and irritated, and and then I just take stuff that makes me more irritable, bitter, and frustrated, so that I can lift a bit more often.
Yeah, you've not sold it there, mate. You've absolutely not sold it
No,
there.
that's why I'm not a very good drug dealer. That's why I have to work.
Yeah, you'd definitely be the worst PED drug dealer in the world. Well, no, so these aren't the final questions because I've forgot loads to fucking ask you. If knowing what you know now, what would you say to yourself then before you've started taking PEDs? Would it have changed your decision now, knowing what you know now?
Where I was in the mindset then, no. Because I had plenty of people tell me what would happen and I did it anyway. Present it to me now, but the thing is like without the benefit of hindsight, I wouldn't have the fully formed opinion. I would probably have, I just know myself so well that I know this is bullshit. But
Yeah.
what you should do is you should spend more time thinking about it than I did. Spend more time training, reach your absolute max natural potential. And then if you still want to do strongman after you've done that and you hit a plateau and you think it's worth it for where you are in your life and what you have planned in the future, then do so. And also you're going to need to do a lot of research and ask a lot of people, and they're all going to give you very different opinions, and you have to decide who you trust the most.
Yeah.
And then still make the
Absolutely.
decision for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. This is a bit of a loaded question, but do you regret it at all?
Yeah, I do. It's hard to say because I am only human, and I'm not, you know, a well-rounded individual, but I know I couldn't have achieved what I have had I not done it. And it's walking a fine line of sounding ungrateful to say that I regret the things that I've lost, or what I've put my body through, or the fears I have for what the future for my body holds because of my decisions to take them.
Yeah.
And I think, come to me if I'm still on this mortal coil in 20 years and I have the full plethora of health problems in front of me that my decisions led me to, and I might be able to give you a better answer. But
Yeah.
my fear for what comes, because again, nobody's been there yet.
Yeah.
Like we're kind of like the first wave.
Yeah, the first wave, especially that people are gonna know about as well. Like, obviously, women will
Yeah,
have taken
well,
PEDs back
exactly.
then, but no
Yeah,
one
they're not,
fucking knew
not
about
gonna
that.
know about it. No. So yeah, I have fear. I don't want to say fear, but trepidation for what it may have done. I know of some other things, obviously, that it has done. And I would also caution people that they need to understand that it's not just this part of your physiology it affects, but it also does chemically alter your brain structure. So
Yeah.
there's no reversing the fact that it's been in your body.
Yeah. I mean, it can be said for loads of stuff in this day and age, though, as well, can't it? Like, we don't know the effects of, like, microplastics. We're going to find that out in the next fucking 20
Well,
years when
exactly
we've all
that,
got that in our blood and brain, aren't we?
and they're not going to try and like get the the guys out with their pitchforks and stuff, but like the COVID jab.
Yeah, absolutely. Nah, I'm on that. I'm on that train. Yeah, be interesting to see what happens with that. Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I love your advice as well. Like, I think, yeah, just making that informed decision and taking some time and like just having a proper think about it. Because I know I've flitted backwards and forwards for years, and I still don't feel sure now. Like, I'm
Yeah.
still not one way or the other. I'm in the middle, and I just, the more I learn, the more I'm like, yeah, but like you said, for me, like the one thing that I keep going for is that if I hit that plateau where I think, fuck, I'm not getting anywhere here, like I'm not getting stronger, then at that point I'll genuinely start to consider it. But I haven't. Like, it's slow. Yeah, fucking hell, it's slow. But it's going. So I think, yeah, eventually maybe, but right now, just wait and see.
Not for you. Yeah, and I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And it's not like when I started, when there was like one pathway.
Yeah.
And to be competitive in that one pathway, you either had to accept that, it was going to take you a very bloody long time, or you can slightly accelerate it if you're prepared to invest not only in that, but in all the other areas that it needs investment as well to support it to work for you. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
my 2 pennies worth on this as well is you've got the arguably one of the biggest federation across all strength sports, one of the, in natural strongman, who actually made that platform contentious here, I'm going to say, but more exciting than the ones that we now have access to. So why would
Yeah.
you want to turn that opportunity down, in
Yeah.
order to try and expedite yourself to somewhere you're not going to get there fast anyway? Like, we've been here 10 years. It's taken us 10 years of all, like, this is another thing people think it's fast. It's not fast, my friend. I've been in this sport 8 years, and it's only in the last 2 or 3 that I've actually started to reach my maturity and find my place amongst the people who before me were doing it for 10, 15 years to get to where they
Yeah.
were. It's not actually any faster. You still have to
Yeah.
work hard. There's still always going to be freaks that come out of nowhere from other sports that are like, hey, I'm really good at this, like, it's not that straightforward,
No.
so why would you, and especially, and like, because it's a fairly big topic in strongman at the moment anyway, especially among weight classes, but trying to keep women in the sport is hard. How do you know that you're going to be the guy that's going to be here in 10 years, and you're not going to be one of these guys that does 2-3 seasons and then disappears into the ether, never to be seen again? Do you want to take those risks on your body for a sport that the statistics say you're not going to be doing for very long.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's you can see it, and I think it's much more common in the men's side than it is in the women's, but I've seen it so many times just in novice athletes who come in, they do 6 months of training, they go, fuck, I'm not getting anywhere, I'm going to take loads of gear, going to slam it. And obviously, like men, I don't think men think about it as much because there's not. I mean, the risks are still there. I'm not saying there's no risks for men taking gear, but the side effects aren't as obvious. Like you can get away
and they
with the
take
sides a
longer.
lot better. Yeah.
And they take longer to impact you. And also, because men's predominant hormone is testosterone anyway, their recovery after a cycle is much more, expedited.
Yeah.
For women, it is not, and it is not guaranteed either. Like if
No.
you have a fleeting fantasy that you want to do strongman and like, oh, it's going really well, so I'm going to take this gear for a couple of seasons, and then, oh well, actually it's not going as well because I didn't realize it took so long to get to the pinnacle anyway, and now I don't want to do it, but I'm going to go start a family, and like that may not be as straightforward a process for you anymore.
Yeah,
You know,
100%. And that's the thing. And then people end up out of the sport, like you said, don't they? But that it brings us on to another good point as well, that fertility. Is that something that you ever thought about, or was it ever a point in your mind of being like, actually,
so I was never super duper into the idea of having children anyway. I was to and fro on it, but in the years preceding my joining strongman and making my decision to take PEDs was on the basis that I already knew that I was biologically not capable of doing that. For people who maybe have that in their, in like the desire to do that in their future, I would not recommend it. Like I don't want to, like, for a woman who's just said that she wasn't sure that she wanted to have children, I can absolutely assure you, you do not want to be sat in front of a doctor, no matter how you think you feel, and be told that as a woman, that option is not really available to you without
yeah,
stringent interventions and a lot of money, you know? Um,
yeah,
like, because that does come down to a biological level. Like even now, sitting here thinking about it, like I feel how that conversation was. And I can
yeah,
guarantee you, if you've got any idea that you might want to have kids in the future, stay the fuck away from gear. Go do the natural strongman route, like you should do anyway.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
if 10 years time, you think it's worth the risk, 5-10 years, or whatever you want to do, then yeah, come and play with us guys, or do both, like there's so many, like you don't have to choose one or the other. You can still do all the same shit we do. It's just going to take you longer,
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. That's the thing. And I think like strongman's a long game, isn't it? Strongman,
Yeah.
there's freaks, and I'll give you that. There's freaks. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
people that come in and they're just mint in 2
You're just like,
years.
holy crap, where did you come from?
And in every sport, there's always going to
But
be that
exactly, yeah.
type of thing. So like, you've just got to deal with it. But if you want to be in this sport, most of us are going to be in it for the long game. Like, if you really like it, you've got to be in it for the long game.
Strength is not built overnight, no matter how you do it.
Yeah,
And there's
100%.
so many things to consider. Like if you wrote a list of things that you can lose, damage, or affect negatively in some way, by taking PEDs, like you get to point 6 and you'd be like, why the fuck does anyone bother? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
And it's
it's
say
mad, isn't
bye-bye to
it?
making rational. Just see if you take PEDs as well. A lot of them can say bye-bye to making rational, life-changing decisions on cycle.
Yeah.
You
It
see it in
just seems like
strongman all the time.
a lot more pressure on people, isn't there? And a lot more like probably decisions that you wouldn't have made if you weren't on gear. That maybe
No
you'd have
matter
thought
how many
about at
people
least a
say
little
that
bit
they're,
more.
yeah, sorry for interrupting you there as well. It's
No,
just like
you're all good.
so many people are like, oh, I don't change when I'm on gear. I was like, well, you don't think you do, you know?
Yeah.
It's also like me back in like, what was it, 2020, when I was like, I'm not putting on any weight. I don't know why the scale says I am. Like, and until I actually saw, I was like, oh, I did actually. It's the same principle. Like, you don't notice it when it's a little bit every day, and then before you know it, like you are a different person. You are more short tempered, and people try and brush it off because they don't see it in themselves, or they don't want to see it because they're trying to justify their decision.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's almost like an avoidance tactic of like, I'm
Totally.
gonna pretend that that's not happening, so that in my mind it isn't happening.
Yeah, exactly. It's totally that.
Amazing. Right. So one of the final questions we'll go for: would you have changed anything if you could go back and you could change what you did? How would you have changed it? And what would you have done?
I think I still would have done it. I know what I'm like. I know myself well enough to know I still would have done it. Because it was ever since I was a kid, I've always had to be the best at everything. And it's like, it should be on the list of like deadly sins, like wanting to be better than everyone at everything, because it's so unhealthy, and it's, it's led me to make some stupid decisions. And so I definitely would have done it, but I just would have liked to have seen what I could have done without it, because now I will never know. And I am so
Mm,
far along this path now, like, and I am incredibly proud of what I've done, and I've always been open and honest about how I've done it, because I just, I don't know, I just don't see why you shouldn't be open and honest. Just own your shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've done lots of stupid things, but I own my shit, and that is one of them. Like, yeah, I made that decision far too quickly, far too rashly, but I'm going to own it, because it's just not in me not to be that way. And
yeah,
B, if me being able to talk about it makes sure that somebody out there who needs help knows that they can talk to me, then great, because so you don't know if you're going to be the only person who tells them the risks,
yeah,
and at least if they choose not to listen, if they choose to do their own thing, well, obviously they're going to choose their own thing because they've got willpower, but like, if they choose not to take that on board and make a decision, then at least that someone out there has actually informed them comprehensively of the risks.
yeah. 100%. I love that. I think that's, unless there's anything else that you want to talk about in terms of PED use, I think that's a great place to end the podcast. Any final
Uh,
thoughts? Any final thoughts for the pod?
I I've got two, and obviously we've covered one of them fairly well already, which is like, if you've taken gear, or if you've taken anything that's on a banned substance list, you shouldn't. You need to stay away from natural competitions. Like, you're feeding into the problem. You and people who choose to lie or willingly disclose your use are feeding into the problem of creating unrealistic expectations of people, who will potentially be pushed into the hands of somebody who's going to give them bad information anyway. So if you don't want to be able, I just don't understand, like, I don't understand it, and maybe someone out there can explain it to me, but I don't understand how you can make a decision like that and lie about it.
Yeah.
Like, does that mean that you are happy for that person that you've lied to go forth and potentially ruin the rest of their life by getting bad information from somebody else?
Yeah. Yeah.
you know and if there's a lot on the line for you, and that's why you don't want to talk about it, then don't do it. you know
Yeah. Yeah.
then
Yeah.
maybe like, if there's a lot on the line for you, if someone finds out that you're on gear and that's why you're lying about it, then just don't do it.
Yeah.
Obviously you've got things in your life that are valuable enough that you need to make that, withhold that. So, and
Yeah.
I just have one
I'm
other
with
thing, but
you.
it's not coming to mind what my other thing was.
That's right. We can have a little think about it. I do agree with you. I think it's interesting because, like, I know obviously Natural Strongman brought out their ruling of like, is it 2 years or 3 years clean you have to be to compete in the 90s, and I do sort of agree with that. Like, I'm sort of on the side of, yeah, I don't mind that, because like, I think everyone deserves a chance. Everyone deserves a second chance, and a lot of people as well, like we know, especially women, usually led down the path of gear without really understanding what they're doing until it's too late. I think if you've done a couple of cycles, or you've done a year or two on gear and then you stop, like, you've been off for 3 or 4 years, yeah, you probably have had physiological changes, but is it going to give you that? Maybe it does give you much of an advantage, but I think I'm
Oh,
just
this
too
is the
much.
thing. Like,
I'm
we
too
don't
much
know.
of a second chance people. Me though.
You
I'm
know
too
what?
forgiving.
I love a second chance, but then like, where do you draw the line? Like, okay, I'm going to come off for 2 years, Rebecca, and I'm going to go and do natural strongman. Can you
I'd be shitting
imagine the
myself.
riots? Can you imagine the riots? Like, this is my point. Like, where do you draw the line with it? Like, oh, such and such is. I understand it's a difficult topic. It's incredibly
Yeah,
difficult topic, and that is why I don't want to be on any boards that have to make decisions.
yeah,
But I that's how I would put it to you. Is like, if I rocked up in 2 years' time to a natty competition, I mean, who's to say, maybe I would, maybe it was all the gear and it wasn't anything to do with my capabilities. But I certainly know I'm going in there with still bone density and muscle density that's far superior to somebody who hasn't taken gear. Doesn't mean I'm going to be
yeah.
talented or strong, but it still means that I'm still going to have advantages over them because of my previous decisions.
Yeah, I do agree. Well, it does. It's just, it then ties into the whole like trans debate as well, doesn't it? Of like where does it, the line get drawn? Where does it actually
It's
stop? And I
incredibly
agree with
difficult.
both sides. It's a really difficult topic in a sport that is inherently got no real rules. So therefore, like, any
No,
rules
well,
that are
this is it.
made,
Like,
people are going to disagree with, aren't there?
yeah, and we're so good at letting the lunatics run the asylum in strongman, and that, like, anyone says anything, and they're like, oh, athletes say that they're not happy about that, so we need to change it, and they're like, oh, but this other athlete's also not happy about it. So, okay, so we need to, like, someone make some decisions, and everybody just stand by their decisions.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
That's an entirely different topic.
And I do agree, like, for me as well, like, if people are going to be open and honest about the fact they've previously taken gear and then they're wanting to compete in the 90s or do whatever, like, for me, if you're open and honest about it, that sort of takes it. I'm like, yeah, cool, do what you want. But if you're not, if you're a
If you're
person that's
disclosing
lied
it,
about it, yeah, if you're not
not
disclosing that
disclosing
gear
it.
usage, that is like, that still for me is difficult, because it just, like, for me as a natty, I'm looking at like the top levels, and now obviously we've got amazing athletes at the top, like Chloe and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff, who are up there and they can make it. You can get there, you can see that.
Well,
But then
exactly.
there's other people that you just think, like, come on, we know it's not possible, we know, and it's really difficult, because how do you limit your expectations as a natural looking up to that? Like, you can't if people aren't being open and honest about stuff, can you?
Yeah. No, it's
But
completely different. And but again, it's part of the human condition. Everybody has a reason there why.
yeah.
I think it's more of a
Just
moral. We're going to end up being a philosophical debate rather than a casual chat about PEDs in our hobby.
I knew this was what I'd get to on every episode. So when I was first doing them, I was like, we're only going to be like 30, 40 minutes. We're already an hour in. We're in the philosophical debates.
Yeah.
Like, oh, shit.
Let's get the Plato out.
Absolutely not. Right. Well, actual proper final thoughts then. Let's end it here, because this has been a great episode. So yeah, final thoughts.
I still can't remember my third final thought. I
We'll
got too distracted.
We'll have to do another podcast. We'll do another one when you think of it. Just let me know and we'll add it
I
on.
remember what I'll literally hang up and I'll be like, oh, Beck, I remember what it was.
Well, what I'll do is I'll put a comment box and like a question box up, and I'll do like an anonymous one and stuff when I start posting these episodes, and then we'll get questions. And what I might do is just get you back on, and then if there's any questions and stuff, we can go through and do another one. So if you remember it, write it down and we'll use it for the next one.
Yeah, I'll put it in your little box.
Perfect.
Bro.
Perfect. Lovely. Right. Well, where can people find you then if they want to chat to you and they want to find out some more information, all that sort of stuff? Are you open? Are your DMs open? Are people able to message you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's on my Instagram, which is at nabstrong_SC, that's Sierra Charlie. My DMs are open. I'm not on Instagram all the time, but whenever I am, I will try and get back to everything that comes through. As and when, and if it might just be in requests, it might just take me longer to get there.
Yeah. Amazing. No, well, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure, and it's been so
Thanks for having
interesting
me.
to talk about this and have such like an open conversation about it. I know that this is going to be meant for people to listen to, and hopefully we can just promote that bit of education for everybody and get the conversation started a little bit.
Yeah, and it's usually met with some resistance, but as is everything that's contentious or difficult.
Absolutely. Well, if anyone's listening and they don't like it and they've got problems, then stop listening. Go away. Don't care. That's my advice.
No one cares.
No one cares. I will not be responding to any hate. So, but lovely. No, thank you very much for being on the show. I hope you enjoyed this episode, everybody, and we will see you all on the next one. Goodbye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Strong Woman Highs, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to support the podcast, then please give us a follow on Instagram. So if you have a Strong Woman competition that you'd like to be sponsored, or if you want to be on the podcast, then give us a shout, send me a message on Instagram or on YouTube, anywhere else you can get us, and we'll get it sorted, because the more women that we can get on, the better. Thanks for listening and watching. Bye!